Right, so standard costing, we have mentioned the fact that we are using standard costing when we go about developing not only our master static budget, but we are also using standard costing to further flex that master static budget into a flexible budget so that we can talk apples to apples instead of apples to oranges due to those quantity differences. So a standard is a carefully determined price, cost, or quantity that is used as a benchmark for judging performance. Right? So we are using basically a target or the standard, and we establish those for both direct materials and also direct labor. And these are typically expressed on a per unit basis. A standard input is a quantity of input, such as 2 pounds of raw material or 1 direct labor hour for each completed unit. Okay, so a standard input is a quantity of input allowed per unit. A standard price is the price a company expects to pay for a unit of input, such as $10 per pound of raw material or $10 per direct labor hour. Okay, so we have a standard input quantity allowed, and we have a standard price that we expect to pay for those. A standard cost is the cost to the company of a unit of output, such as direct material cost of a completed unit. Right, so we can develop these numbers, and the standard costs are recorded in the accounting system. Actual price and actual usage amounts are then compared to the standards, and variances are then recorded. When we use standards in variance analysis, we have 2 advantages. What we seek to do is to exclude past efficiencies and take into account changes expected to occur in the budget period. So price and efficiency variances provide feedback so that we can initiate corrective actions. Again, we are using this to run our operations better. All right, so management by exception. We are looking for areas where we are not meeting pricing and efficiency goals that are basically embedded within our master static budget and also therefore our flexible budget based on the fact that we have used our standard cost and standard inputs. Whenever we use these standards, it also aids us because it simplifies our product costing, enabling the company to cost a product immediately upon its completion. Standards are used to control costs. Again, we're calculating these variances and using our management by exception. And managers can then use this variance analysis to evaluate performance after decisions are implemented. And of course, it is a part of our continuous improvement program. In regards to benchmarking, benchmarking is the continuous process of comparing the levels of performance in producing products and services against the best levels of performance in competing companies. All right, so this is something that we need to do and utilize in our planning, directing, and controlling of our company. Managers will know the company will be competitive if it can attain the standards set by benchmarking. Sometimes it's difficult for a company to attain sufficient information from competitors because, again, not all of this information is publicly available. So many times we can partake in studies and research that are performed by, for example, companies or accounting firms such as E&Y, who gather information and keep some of the identifying information private, but the benchmarking information is shared by industry. So there are ways to obtain some of this benchmarking information. Our variances can be extended to include comparison to other entities. All right, so if we really want to drill down into how we're performing versus others, we can do that by breaking out information and then comparing ourselves to how others are performing. And in your Chapter 7 text, they give us an example of some calculations that are performed for the airline industry. And basically what they have done here is they break down cost and revenues by what is called the available seat mile. And the available seat mile is equal to the total number of seats in an airplane multiplied by the distance traveled, and it's basically a measure of the airline's size. And then they take the different areas that they are wanting to evaluate and divide them by the ASM, or this available seat mile number, in order to be able to compare one airline company to another. So here we can see that United Airlines is looking to evaluate their performance against 7 competing airlines in benchmarking comparisons. So we can see here that the first one in column B, they are wanting to evaluate operating costs. So of course we know the lower the better there. United Airlines is $14.19 per ASM. However, if we wanted to compare their efforts towards their competitors, JetBlue has a much lower operating cost per ASM at 11.42, and Delta, I believe, has the highest at 13. Nope, it's American Airlines at 14.26. And if you look at the average of the airlines, it's 12.91. So United Airlines is more expensive to operate compared to the industry average. Looking at their revenues per ASM, United Airlines is at $13.10 per ASM, but the highest amount of revenues per ASM, and I'm looking at a different set of information in an old version of the textbook here. Our highest operating revenue is Delta at 14.48, but our lowest in operating revenue per ASM is JetBlue at 11.96, and United Airlines is just a touch below the average of 13.3. We could do this for each one of these particular areas, analyzing, are they performing better than the average? Where do they stand as far as their competitors go? So this is how some of this information can be utilized in benchmarking, and then looking into those particular areas and seeing what the company can do to improve their performance.